You are watching Conversations with Jennylyn, formerly known as The Jennylyn Show. And tonight, my guest is Andreas Ramos. He is Colombian, and he has come to this Bay Area and worked in startups, done many exciting things, but he has written 14 books. And his last book is a #1 bestseller on Amazon, and it's called Startups. And I cannot wait to ask him some questions that are on my mind after reading some of this book. Andreas?
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming on coming to my show.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Sure. So before we talk about all those great things you've done here in the Bay Area, you're Colombian.
Mm-hmm. I was born in Colombia. Yes.
And at what age did you come to the United States?
I was 5 years old.
Oh, so you grew up in America.
Yeah, I grew up in the East Coast in Massachusetts, North Carolina, and so on, and then about 10 years in Tennessee.
So how did you end up in California?
From Tennessee, I went to Germany to study philosophy. And Heidelberg is the #1 school for philosophy in Europe, in Germany. So I went to Germany, learned German.
Uh-huh.
I landed on Easter Sunday, and I took the entrance exams and got in by September.
Did you speak German before you went there?
No.
Wow.
I learned German about 6 months. I really, really wanted to be at the university, so I learned German really fast.
That is beyond impressive, because I've been to Germany and I've been in Holland, and I cannot say any word that has a U and V next to each other.
It's a difficult language.
Very.
So I studied Heidelberg and philosophy and political science and so on. It was a lot of fun, like 7 years there. And then from there I went to France for a year. There's a lot of philosophy done in French. And so I took classes at the French schools.
Yes.
Lived in Paris for almost a year, and then from there went to Denmark. And then I started doing a PhD, a doctorate in philosophy in Denmark.
Wow, I'm so impressed. So you ended up in the Bay Area.
In Denmark, I bought a computer to write my thesis. The computers had just come out. And in the early computers, there was not much software, so you had to write your own software. So I wrote the software, and I started sharing it, I started selling it, and that took off really big and made quite a bit of money on selling software. And Denmark is only 4 million people, and Silicon Valley is 7 million people, so it's a bigger market.
Yes.
So I came here to work in computers.
So you came here specifically for that?
Yes.
And is that when you had your first startup?
That was in Denmark, the very first company. We didn't call it startup back then. We didn't really have a word for it.
Yeah.
I came here, I joined the startup, and in the dot-com boom from 95 to 2000, I worked at something like 25 startups.
Oh my goodness. What would you say to someone getting into a startup? What's the one tip you would give them? The good thing about it and the reason why you don't recommend it, if there is one.
The #1 reason, if you really, really want to do something on your own, then do a startup.
Okay.
Because you're your own, nobody's your boss. You do what you really, really want. The downside of it is you work basically 6 days a week, 14 to 16 hours a day for 1 or 2 years.
And if it doesn't work out?
Well, that's not a problem, really. If it doesn't work out, the startup crashes, then you learn something, or you learn quite a bit.
But don't you also lose a lot of money?
The investors lose money.
Investors lose money.
But you learn a great deal. And you take a break, a few weeks, a few months, and then you do it again. Mm-hmm. But this time you do it better because you learn what went wrong. And the investors, if they saw that you really were sincere and tried really well, they'll invest again.
That's really great to know.
Someone who's gone through a startup, they learn something which is better than someone who hasn't done it.
Yes.
And the second time, it may crash again. But the third time, then you really learned. And then the third and fourth time, you build companies, and after that, you start building one after the other. So the successful founders here are not the first-time founders. It's the third and fourth-time founders. Then they've really learned how to do companies. And now, at that point, I know guys, men and women, who've done lots and lots of startup.
Yes.
They can put together a startup in a few hours.
Wow.
They know all the things they have to do, and just sitting in an hour or two, work out all the issues and get started. It works really easy.
Because of how many they've worked in the past, from their experience.
And in getting raising money is super easy because they have investors who know them and trust them. So they just pick up the phone, call so-and-so, three or four people. Oh, we need $500,000. This will be in one afternoon, in 2 or 3 days, they can raise $500,000.
That's because they are reputable.
Exactly. They have experience, they have background, the investors know them, and it works out. No PowerPoint, no presentations.
Are those really good? Do those really help? Because someone told me you have 1 minute to engage the person who, it's not true?
Oh, there's so many stories about first-time startups, pitch events, and elevator pitches. There's so many stories about that.
Yes.
The reality, how it really works, personal connections. You know someone who knows someone, and they get you in. It's really, if people here with a degree from MIT, Harvard, Stanford, from all over the place, if they don't have connections, they won't get in. It's really, really difficult.
Wow, when you work so hard, and some of them have some great innovation in their back pockets, but they don't have the financing.
They don't have the connections, they can't raise the money, and they come here, they'll spend 6 months, a year trying, knocking on doors, really, really trying, but they don't learn how it works, and in the end, they go home. It's really pretty awful.
But I think that we have an unusual amount of startups today. Do you agree?
Oh, wow.
It's like everybody has a startup.
In the dot-com boom, there were about 35,000 startups in the Bay Area, okay, in 95 to 2000. Today, 85,000. They're more than double.
So no wonder, who in the world, do you think there's enough financing to go around?
Back then, the Bay Area had somewhere around $10 to $20 billion in VC money. Right now, there's about $80 to $90 billion a year in VC money coming to the Bay Area.
Amazing.
Back then, a startup got $5 million, $10 million. Today, you're talking about $50 million, $100 million first rounds. It's incredible. There's people all over the world. Back then, in 95, 2000, dot-com boom, only the U.S. investors knew about this. Now, you have investors in China, Russia, Germany, France, all over Europe, Africa, South America. They're all coming here. How can we be part of this? How can we invest? So a lot more money is flowing into Silicon Valley now.
But do you really believe this is the pot? This is the biggest pot and the best place to get financing? Because I hear people say China.
Yes, it's changing. It used to be Silicon Valley was here in Silicon Valley. Now it's all over the world. So many people learn how to do startups and start doing it in India and China and France and Germany and Scandinavia. So now there's startups everywhere. There's more than 1,000 accelerators in Africa. There's more than 10,000 startups in Africa.
Wow.
It's happening everywhere now.
Incredible. Yeah. So this innovation is not just happening here. People think that we are the Silicon Valley, so this is the tech mecca. If you're not here, you're getting left out. But that's not true anymore.
Silicon Valley now is everywhere. I talk to people in India, China. People do startups in India, China, Spain, Colombia, Mexico, Finland, everywhere, Africa. And we all talk about what they're doing and how they learn from here and adapt it to local conditions. So it's going on everywhere now.
And you know, you're like, well, what is the cutting edge technology or startup that's like leading the way? But there's so many, because I was at an event not so long ago and I met someone and we were talking, and I said, you know, I was looking for someone not so long ago to come on my show to discuss blockchain. And he said, you don't want blockchain, you want to do something on marijuana. Like marijuana chocolates, and there's marijuana pepper sauce. And I'm like, is that where people are putting their money now?
Some people are. Yes, there is a market in marijuana startups. It's a few $1 billion, yes, but that's tiny compared to other things. Healthcare, much bigger market.
Yeah, AI.
AI is gigantic. The internet, which we call Facebook, Google, all the web, is roughly around $2 trillion. But IoT, Internet of Things, this year alone is $9 trillion, far bigger than the web. And blockchain, you can't even begin to guess how big that'll be. It's gigantic what's coming.
It's so difficult to wrap your head around the concept of it. I mean, I've had someone on my show and I've read a lot, and I'm still a little blurry about the way it was explained to me. Is think of a rug on your carpet. Every single thread is a blockchain, or something like that.
Possible, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that it's all wonderful. But the older people, how are they going to adapt to all of this? It's got to be overwhelming.
Not just the older people. I teach at business schools. I teach at INSEAD. It's a French business school in San Francisco. And I also teach at another business school.
Oh, you do?
My students are 21, 22, 23. You say blockchain, they say, what is that? It's really hard for them to understand it because it's so different. When the web first started in 94, 95, it was really hard to explain websites to people.
Right.
Now everybody gets it. Blockchain, it's the same way right now. Blockchain is like 1994 on the web.
So you think eventually, as it becomes more popular, they're going to find simpler ways to explain it?
Yeah, you get used to it. You start realizing, oh, you have a blockchain for this, a blockchain for that, and it becomes just a normal part of life and everything.
Boy, this world is moving so fast. I sometimes wonder what else is going to happen before I leave this planet.
The velocity, the speed of change is insane. It used to be it would take 5 years for something to come onto the market, spread out. Now things happen within 6 months. They can have 50% market share. It's incredible how fast it happens now.
So you teach business to people?
I teach digital marketing.
Digital marketing.
How the work with Google, with Facebook, with social media, email newsletters, all of that. It's a big business now.
I would imagine, because I mean, a lot of this stuff, it's not easy for someone to sit with you like an hour or so and explain, and then you get it. And not even enough to incorporate it in your daily life. How much of what is happening you feel, if you're not on the cutting edge, you're going to be left behind? Because it will affect your life.
People ask me, so how do you keep up with everything? It's not possible. There's simply so much going on.
Good, so I'm not so stupid then.
I know just a little bit of what's going on in that little area. I specialize. All these other areas, I barely know. Blockchain, I've read several books about it. I've gone to conferences with it. I've talked to people about it. I barely understand it. It's just like a gigantic thing. It's an area. It's another new area. And there's many, many other things like that. We just barely understand them.
Well, you know, with all of the AI innovation and AI in medicine, AI in technology, do you feel that all of the AI that's coming out will make it easier for people? So it's okay if you don't get it here because some computer will handle it for you? I mean, I don't know, because I did have a guest once who told me that pretty soon you won't even need examinations anymore because there will be more equality. And then I said, so how do you measure intelligence?
AI see another one of these fields. I was at Xerox PARC, the research center here in Palo Alto. I've been going to conference there for a very long time, since the 90s. And we talked about AI for years. I was in a monthly conversation group with developers and so on. And there are people who work in AI. And it's another gigantic field. They're very, very complex. There's some things that some of the AI tools can do something really, really well, but there's entire other areas it simply cannot handle. It's very good for identifying certain kinds of things, but other things it simply cannot do. And it'll be years before you have an AI that you can put in your house and talk to and deal with it in a human way.
I tell you.
Don't worry about
you know, when you do these interviews, time just flies. And you've written 14 books. But your last book is the one I really want to talk about. And what I'd like to do is have you leave us some teasers so we can go and read the rest. Your last book is called Startups, and it's a number one bestseller on Amazon. And I want you to tell me I overheard a discussion with you in a previous show that you were on that I worked on. And I was standing on the camera thinking, are people out there trying to kill him? Is he worried for his life? Because some of what I heard is in the book. So tell me about that book.
I've worked in so many startups. I've done 3 startups myself. I worked at really large corporations. I worked at Cisco and Sun and things like that. I worked at large companies and little companies. And all these friends of mine started doing startups. And I began noticing that the books about startups are not very good. They're written by people who themselves haven't done startups. The professors at the university who teach startups haven't done startups. So they don't really know what it's like to do a startup. And a lot of these books are theoretical. It's just not reality. So I began writing, because friends of mine were doing startups and they needed help.
Yes.
And I became an advisor to the startup. So I began writing notes and outlines for them of what to do. That's how the book came out. There's a practical reality, how to really do a startup. And I interviewed people not just in Silicon Valley, but also in Colombia, in Africa, in Spain, and so on, Sweden.
That's awesome.
How they do startups. And so the book is practical for everyone. It's already in French, and it's being translated to Spanish. It's in Korean now, and Chinese is coming out very soon. So it'll be 4
Wow,
languages.
so every nation, because since you've gone around the world and done research, what is in the book will affect people around the world. It's not just for Silicon Valley.
And people everywhere, it doesn't cost very much money, only a few $100s to do a startup. It's really,
That's
really
it?
cheap. Yes, it's really cheap now.
To do a startup? Well, it depends on the startup, right?
If you're going to do an app for Apple, that's $100 for the license. So that's $100 there. About $30 or so for the registered domain name. Not very much more. Everybody has laptops nowadays.
Oh, you're talking about if it's an app for like one of the devices, one of the handheld devices. But what if it's another startup, something that's not an app?
In the beginning, before you start writing code, this is important. Before, people say, oh, we're going to do a startup, we need the software first. So they would spend $50,000, $100,000 to write the software and then go to the market. But that's the wrong way to do it. First, you ask the market, you interview. What are the problems? What doesn't work? What can be fixed? Once you learn how to do that, then you know what doesn't work and where the money is. Then it's really easy to go to investors and say, look, here's a clear problem. It costs a lot of money for the company. We can fix that problem. And it's an easy market. And investors can say, wow, that's easy. They'll give you the money. And then you write the software and so on. So for the first 3 to 6 months, you don't need much money. A few $1,000s at the very most.
Amazing. So many people don't know this, because I know a lot of people who have ideas, and I have lots of friends in the Caribbean. I grew up in British Guyana, Trinidad, and a lot of my friends in Trinidad have great innovations. Some of them are making those marijuana chocolates. And I wouldn't try the chocolates with the marijuana because I'm not interested in that. But the other chocolates, because the cocoa, you're from Colombia, the best cocoa grows in that part of the world. And so they're making incredible chocolate. And they're trying to find investors here. And at first I thought, I don't know if anybody here would even be willing to invest in that. And I realized that there are investors interested in this.
People are no longer focused just on here inside Silicon Valley. The investors have learned there's opportunities everywhere. And investors before 5 or 10 years ago, investors in China, Africa, and so on, only invested in Silicon Valley. But now they're realizing there's markets everywhere. And now you're starting to see, I think Spain alone has 30 unicorns. There's hundreds and hundreds, thousands of startups in Spain.
Yeah, because who are we to think that only in the Silicon Valley we have smart people, right?
They're everywhere now. And they come here, they learn, they go back, and they build companies.
Yes.
And so the investors are starting to realize there's opportunities everywhere. Investors in Africa, there's quite an active market in Africa now.
Well, I know you've done a lot of research for this last book. How do you compare what you've seen among startups in the U.S. and like Africa or China? What differences have you seen, if any?
You know there's an English expression, to rest on your oars?
Yes.
You know that?
No, I don't know what that is. I don't.
You go to a rowboat competition,
Yes.
everybody's rowing.
Yes.
And now I'm number one. I'm way ahead of everybody else. So I rest. I put down the oars, I rest, and start eating my sandwich and relaxing because they're right behind me. That's the danger. I think here in the U.S., we've been ahead so far for so long, we're not really competing very much anymore. And
Yes,
China,
because we're already
India,
leading.
we've been leading for so long, so we're relaxing. Meanwhile, you go in India, in China, in Africa, they're really working really hard. You go to Silicon Valley companies on a Saturday morning, the parking lot's empty. People are not working on Saturdays anymore. We went to the Kleiner Perkins at Sequoia, the VC. Saturday morning, the parking lot were empty. Why aren't they working?
Well, because if you, what they said, I read something somewhere where it says, the lion does not lay awake at night thinking about the sheep, right?
The lion relaxes.
Right.
He goes to sleep.
And the lion.
Meanwhile, the jaguars are coming along. And that's what's happening. China is investing tens of billions of dollars in AI.
I was going to say, they claim that they're actually leading in AI.
Oh, yeah.
Is that true, or is that a false claim?
Possible. I'm not even expert enough on AI to say that, but they are investing enormous amounts of money into AI, and they have a gigantic market, so it's possible.
What would you leave from that last book that you've written, the startup book? What is the one thing you would like to leave with anybody watching the show? I mean, if you want to know about this book, the best thing to do is buy it. It's a #1 bestseller, and it's worth the information inside. But what would you leave with somebody watching about that book that you think people should know?
You don't have to be from Stanford or MIT. You don't have to be here. You can do startups everywhere. You can look at your local condition, where you are, look at company, see where the problems they have, and come up with solutions. Software is really cheap now. To build something like Uber, you don't need tens of millions of dollars anymore. There are lots of Uber clones that you can rent. You can set up you can get a copy of the Uber software for around $2,000 and set up your own Uber or your own Airbnb. There's lots and lots of opportunity now.
Yes. Can you believe it? When Uber started, I was like, why didn't I think about that? Because so many of these ideas, when you first hear of the concept, you think that's not going to work.
I know.
And these guys are making a ton of money.
People come to me, I know VCs, investors, people say, oh, we have an idea. And people say, oh, that's a bad idea. 6 months later, it's a giant company. Or they say, it's a great idea. And 6 months later, it goes nowhere. Nobody really knows. The investors don't really know what's going to work or not. It's the people who use the software, the actual users, they can tell you is it a good idea or not. That's why you have to go to the market. You have to talk to them, interview them, and they'll tell you does this really work or not.
And I also feel like when you have an idea, especially if it's for innovation, don't tell too many people because they poo-poo on your thing. And if you're someone who doesn't really believe in the whole idea or concept, they can discourage you.
They discourage you. Oh, that's never going to work. Or you're a woman, you'll never get money, blah, blah, blah.
It will cost too much money. Yes.
Yeah.
And a good example of that, that is my go-to reminder of not to let people poo-poo your stuff, is Lady Gaga. Because I remember them telling her she couldn't sing and blah, blah, blah. And she believed in herself. And look at her today. And so my advice to anybody is, if you have an idea and if you have a vision, you need to believe in it and give it your best and not let people discourage you.
Don't let other people be negative.
Yeah.
Lots of people like to say that they know what they're doing and tell you, oh, that'll never work. Don't listen to them. Pandora, the online radio, 88 VCs said that'll never work. It's a $3 billion company now.
Are they kicking themselves? I'd like to see what they're doing to themselves.
Don't listen to the negative people. Focus on the ideal, focus on the customers, make your customers happy, and it'll work.
What do you want to say to people or anyone who has had an idea, is trying to do a startup, that's met with a VC and then got shushed off. What do you want to say to that person?
Find a few co-founders. Build a really good team of 2 or 3 people who are really dedicated to the idea. Work with them. Interview people. Interview the customers. Find out what works, and then talk to other founders who've done startups and ask them if their investors are interested. And that way you network with them. Don't go to VCs.
Yes, I was going to say, how do you feel about VCs? Because I know that historically, I don't know about today, VCs come on board and they try to sometimes change the direction of the ship or take over and become the captain. So if at best you can, do not go to VCs for money, is what you're saying.
Friends, go to connections. Find other founders who have good investors. Talk to their investors. And if because of personal connection, they'll listen to you. They'll talk to you. And that works better. You don't need $50 million to do a startup. There's startup now with $1 billion in funding. That's crazy. You don't need $1 billion.
So we're about to wrap up. What's the last thing you want to leave with viewers about your book, about your travels around the world, and about the startups you have done in the past? Buy his book, but in addition to the book, tell us what you want to leave with them.
There's tremendous opportunity now. It's better now than it was in '95. There's more going on now in more different kinds of things and all over the world. You can be here in Silicon Valley or in Shanghai or in India or in Europe. There's opportunities everywhere now.
Well, if you are someone who has an idea and you really believe in it and you can see how it will help lives, change your life and change other people's lives, then don't just give up on it. Make sure you set a clear course for it and then try to go find the funding. Yeah. And like Andrea says, you just need to get the software and the website.
Yeah, easy.
Well, thank you so much for watching the Jennylyn Show. Thank you to my crew. Thank you so much, Andreas. I am very happy we did this segment because so many people here have great ideas and they think they need a lot of money to make something happen. So thank you for watching Conversations with Jennylyn, and I will see you next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.